All right, welcome everyone. Hands-on GitOps workshop using Argo CD and Helm. Also otherwise known as stop using kubectl, use Git instead. So this workshop is brought to you by Acuity, creators of the Argo project. So if, in case you didn't know, Acuity is a startup founded by the creators of the Argo project. So to get started here, you'll be certified introduction to GitOps and Argo CD at the end of this. So if you want to receive certification, go ahead and scan the QR code, or else go there on your laptop. I'm going to keep this up for a little while. Also, we do have marketing didn't actually send us enough swag, so like the first, what do you want to say, 12 people sign up, get something. No, 20 people first 20 people sign up. We're getting a notification here to get your certification at the end. Also, we have something little special as well for the first 20 people. So I'll leave this up for a few more seconds while I get some water. Also, I'll give you this mic here so you can do your introduction. It's hot. So. What's that? Yeah, I'll send it out to you. Okay. Cool. Looks like everyone took a picture of it and/or scanned it. If you haven't, you can come up and get it from me later if you wish here. So we're going to see who we are. So, all right, introductions. So my name is Hernandez. I am actually an Argo CD maintainer. I'm also an Open GitOps maintainer. I am head of community at Acuity here. Again, Acuity created the Argo project long ago inside of Intuit. Also native to Southern California, native to Los Angeles. I actually live in the West Side, but it's my actually first scale. So interesting enough, I lived here all my whole life, but this is my first time here. So I'm excited to check it out. I'm also a guitar player, so any musicians out there want to grab me in the hall, we can nerd out on guitar. And you can find me on the socials, GitHub, X / Twitter. And I'll let Justin here introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Justin, and I am also working at Acuity here with Christian. And today we're going to show you an introduction into Argo CD. If you guys have any questions at the end, feel free to ask. We should have plenty of time. I am also an Argo CD maintainer, and I'm a technical support engineer at Acuity. And I am also local here to Southern California. This will be my 5th scale and my first time presenting. And I've been an avid scuba diver here in Southern California for the last 20 plus years.
Awesome, cool. So I'm going to be running through this workshop presentation. Well, first I'm going to go through a presentation, kind of just get some background, and running through the workshop with you. If you have any questions or running behind, or need any help during the workshop, raise your hand. Justin here will help you out. He's actually building out the workshop, updating the workshop as we speak. So I'm going to go through this presentation and then maybe take any questions out of the presentation. So first, I kind of want to gauge the level of knowledge here. Actually, before we start, the prerequisites. The only prerequisite is you have a GitHub account. We were trying to make it as easy as possible. If you don't have a GitHub account, now's probably the time to start signing up for one. We use dev containers, right? So inside of GitHub. So we try to keep this as self-contained as possible, try not to stress the Wi-Fi too much. The people who did a presentation before us actually said they had some issues with rate limiting and whatnot, so I actually jumped on the slow Wi-Fi. Actually is faster for me, funnily enough. So little trick, I don't know if you're jumping on, it'll make it slow. But so yeah, so anyways, prerequisite, GitHub account. That's really in a browser, right? Really trying to make it as easy as possible. So show of hands, right? Kubernetes Day, I guess you guys are familiar with containers at the very least. All right, cool. Sounds good. Good group. Familiar with Kubernetes? Show of hands. All right, awesome, cool. Familiar with GitOps? Okay, a little less. Awesome. Argo CD. Argo CD. Okay, cool. Cool. We got a good mix here of folks. So a lot of the times it's hard for me to judge because I'm usually like at KubeCon or like at Red Hat Summit or something like that. People are more familiar than a conference like this where it's like a wide range. So we got a good mix here. So let's talk about Kubernetes a little bit. This will probably be review for a lot of you since I saw a lot of hands up there. You know, we're trying to build on why we're using Argo CD, and I always like to start with Kubernetes, right? So from a really basic 10,000-foot view, Kubernetes is a resource orchestrator. It started off as orchestrating containers, right? You have containers, a convenient way to package an application, but there was really no way at the time to orchestrate that across a large environment. And so it started off with containers. It moved on to really being like a resource orchestrator to now, because of the Kubernetes API and the introduction of something called a custom resource definition, you can start orchestrating other things, even other things outside of Kubernetes. If you are interested in things outside of Kubernetes, outside of containers, you can look at things like the Crossplane project, where they're orchestrating things outside of Kubernetes, but using Kubernetes APIs. And Kubernetes is based on something called the promise theory, right? Give me your YAML and I'll make it so, sort of thing. But I think Kelsey Hightower had a really good comparison to kind of like the US Postal Service, right? I have, you know, a letter with a destination, right? Where I want this letter to end up, right? And I give it to the Postal Service, right? I don't have to worry about planes being delayed. I don't have to worry about trains breaking down. I don't have to worry about like delivery trucks breaking down. That is taken care of for me, right? I don't have to tell them how to get my letter there. It's just I just tell them what my end state is, right? And really talking about the declarative nature of Kubernetes, which can be done because containers are immutable. So we really kind of want to describe the end state. I don't want to imperatively say, how to get there. I just want my end state to look like this, right? And how that gets done, I really don't necessarily care about that. And that's Kubernetes. Made up of different controllers, right? Sort of the idea of do one thing, but do it very well, right? There's a controller to scale a pod, right? The pod controller, that's all it does. There's a controller for services. There's a controller for deployments. There's a controller for each individual thing. It does it very well. And it's very loosely coupled, right? Think about things that are loosely coupled in Kubernetes, all based on labels, right? Do one thing, do it very, very well. You can build relationships between those things based on labels. And one of the things about Kubernetes is cloud agnostic. How I interact with AWS, right? And how I interact with GCP is basically the same. I'm using the Kubernetes API, and the back-end infrastructure doesn't necessarily matter to me. It matters depending on who you are, right? If you're either a developer, you really don't care. Maybe you care a little bit more if you're an operations, platform engineer type of thing. But it's cloud agnostic, meaning that it's the same similar APIs no matter where I'm running my workload. So 10,000-foot view Kubernetes, I'm probably saying things you guys probably already know for those who are already familiar with Kubernetes, right? So, so there are some drawbacks to Kubernetes. You're going from a monolith, right? An application. It's like, this is my application. This is, especially for those of you Java folks, it's like you just kind of know, it's like, this is my application, this is my monolith, and I deploy it. And we're going from that to loosely coupled objects, right? Like I mentioned before, it's do one thing but do it very well, but your application is actually complicated when it comes down to it. You have a front-end API in a container, and I have a service that is basically my network coming in. Like, well, those things kind of need to come together, right? I need to be able to access, if I have, especially an API, I need to be able to access that API via network somehow, so there's a service attached to that. There's an ingress attached to that. There's storage that's attached to that. There's like all these little different components, and now you got, essentially, Kubernetes is you got like rat droppings really everywhere, right? And you're trying to like kind of like deploy them and aggregate them together, and it's, you know, if you're running like one cluster, you know, or maybe, you know, half dozen cluster, that's kind of okay. But when you start getting more and more into scale and different environments, right? Like you don't just have a production environment, you have different environments, and those environments can have, you know, dozens and dozens of clusters, and trying to keep track of all of that is a little difficult, right? And also another thing is that, oh, actually changing the outline, that logo got big, but you took, now we have declarative infrastructure, but people are still managing that imperatively, right? It's like, oh yeah, I'm using Terraform, or I'm using, you know, I'm using, you know, my Ansible, or I'm using this, I'm using that. Like you're still kind of doing things imperatively with a declarative infrastructure, right? Before, I think someone said like, oh, Kubernetes is kind of like how a system is designed if I took away your SSH keys, but we really traded SSH for kubectl, right? Like there was really no difference there. Okay, I can't SSH into the system, but I'm, you know, managing it with kubectl now, and it's really kubectl is an imperative way, an abstract imperative way of managing Kubernetes. And actually now CI/CD became harder, right? CI/CD actually became harder with Kubernetes. Instead of making our lives easier, it made it a little harder because now we're trying to do synchronous tasks. We're trying to meld synchronous tasks and asynchronous tasks together, right? The asynchronous nature of Kubernetes, eventual consistency, but like you have a CI/CD process that like needs to wait for things, but now you're trying to meld the two worlds of, you know, especially if you're going from like VMs to you know, traditional VMs to Kubernetes. Like now it's like, okay, now I'm melding synchronous processes with asynchronous processes, so that, you know, now you're going from VMware to reality, right? One of the things that early on in Kubernetes that people seem to not get is like, you know, we come from a VMware world, I guess Broadcom now, where like you have like the VMware cluster, and it's like the central place, and it's like, well, people were trying to treat Kubernetes that way, and it's like, no, actually, you're running multiple Kubernetes clusters, and there's really no central management system for Kubernetes at that time. And so, you know, there's a mind shift there as well. So, so there must be a better way, right? So you know, so now we have, you know, all these little kind of rat dropping objects that you need to manage across multiple Kubernetes clusters, across multiple environments, and so the idea came by of something called Open GitOps. So for those who are interested, OpenGitOps.dev, but Open GitOps was a kind of a work. It started out as a GitOps working group, and it started with members from actually the Argo project, members from the Flux project, members from different, you know, all the big players that you'd expect: Red Hat, AWS, Weaveworks, CodeFresh, Intuit. I'm probably GitHub. I'm probably missing a company, VMware even as well. It's just like all these companies came together. It's like, okay, let's define what GitOps is, because now we have this little thing called GitOps, which is basically managing everything in Git, and then everything else using Git as a source of truth, essentially. And it's like, well, let's define what it means to be GitOps, because we don't want happen to GitOps. Well, what happened to cloud, right? Like really, like everything's cloud now. Like cloud just became, first became like a buzzword, and now it's like everyone calling everything cloud. You know, people calling their local storage cloud, their Plex servers, whatever, right? Oh, that's my cloud. And so we want to define what it means to be, what is GitOps, right? So GitOps, there's 4 principles. If you visit OpenGitOps.dev, there's more information about this, but there's really 4 principles of what GitOps is. And it really stemmed from the fact that we want to leverage the declarative nature of Kubernetes we want to leverage that, and we want to manage our entire system that way. So instead of managing individual objects with kubectl, we manage it holistically, right? So now you kind of you see the entire infrastructure holistically. And if you're running things declaratively, right? A system managed, I don't usually read off the slides, but I think this is, I usually do when Open GitOps comes up. The GitOps principles is a system managed by GitOps must have its desired state expressed declaratively, right? So no, we want to take advantage of a Kubernetes system, right? Of a system that's declarative by saying, okay, well, like we want to describe everything declaratively. It's version and immutable. Ironically, we don't use Git in Open GitOps, right? Because as long as a system is version immutable, which Git is, but other things are version immutable, like an S3 or object storage, OCI, other things like that, SQLite technically, is version and immutable, but the desired state is stored in a way that enforces immutability, versioning, and retains a complete version history. It's pulled automatically. So I actually personally don't like the wording on this, but open source, you get outvoted. It says pulled out. It has nothing to do with push or pull model. It has nothing to do with that. What it means is that the declarations, software agents automatically pull the desired state declarations from the source. The meaning behind this is webhooks, right? This always causes some animosity, especially on Twitter. I'm not against webhooks. You'll definitely use webhooks, even in a GitOps environment. But GitOps says, don't rely solely on webhooks. You're going to use webhooks, and you're going to use an agent to continuously monitor your desired state. So that way, it takes care of things like configuration drift and things like that. You don't have to wait for the next run, or you don't have to wait for some event to happen. It's just continuously monitoring your system, and which then leads into the final principle is this continuously reconciled. So continuously reconciled, meaning that, okay, if I see some sort of divergence, I'm actually going to attempt to reconcile that for you. Software agents continuously observe the actual system state and attempt to apply the desired state. So anytime there's any drift, whether on purpose, whether by accident, whether by whatever means, we want your desired state. That is your source of truth. If it doesn't match that, I'm going to try that, right? And so, interested in attending a meeting, please attend a meeting. OpenGitOps.dev. There's a link there to attend a meeting to find out more. We at OpenGitOps project, we focus specifically on Kubernetes, but we understand that there's entire systems out there that you need to manage in a way. So we actually would want to see, okay, like how can we expand this to include things that are kind of not declarative, right? And so, like VMs, like even mainframes, like whatever, right? Like we need to have some of these principles to expand. So, so that's Open GitOps, and that's GitOps in general. I want to kind of just go over what happens without GitOps, right? Talking about using kubectl. The graphic here, I can go over it, but the main idea behind here is that any part in this scenario can change your cluster, right? Whether it's a developer directly or a developer writing something in a repo using GitHub Actions or whatever, writing into changing stuff in the Kubernetes, a container registry. Doing a webhook to update something, your CI system, me coming in, doing kubectl, running something, I can change the actual state of the system, what we call an out-of-band change, to the system, whether it's wanted or not wanted, whether it's needed or not needed, whether it's a break glass scenario, doesn't matter. Changes occur in your cluster from anywhere, and you don't really necessarily know where that change came from, whether whether you do it or not, right? And so with GitOps, there's this kind of little barrier, right? There's this interface. is what I like to call GitOps, is that the interface into your system is Git, because there's a controller. It doesn't matter what changes, right? I can go in kubectl, scale something, right, a deployment, but if it doesn't match the desired state, the GitOps controller will revert it back. And so any changes to the system needs to be done through Git workflows. That's the idea. Whether that workflow is something like a PR, right? That's like, okay, hey, like if I need to make a change to the system, I need to make a PR to the repo, and approvals need to go through place, or whether the CI system creates the PR, or whether whether you make a PR and then triggers a CI system that changes. The idea is that your interface into the cluster is your source of truth, right? In Git in this case. And so, yeah, the GitOps operator has a read-only access to the Git repo, and what it does is essentially just does one thing, does it very simply, right, is it takes your desired state and just makes sure that the running state equals your desired state. And so now, whether it's a developer, whether it's a CI system, a robot, whatever, how I change a system happens through Git, right? And there's best practices and things like that we can go over as we move along. But things like protected branches and things like that, right? Approvals, Git blame, whatever, roll back, roll forward, all of that's done through Git workflows, right? So some of the things that GitOps gives you. Control, right? Like as I said before, all interactions happen via Git, especially if you're using like GitHub or GitLab, Git, right? You have this kind of visual of like who made what change, when, where, why. Collaborations, right? So like if everything's out in the open, how the system changes, how the system behaves is all there. And again, like I said before, you can set up approvals and things like that from different people. Is like, okay, only certain people can merge at certain times, that sort of thing. Compliance, right? A lot of people say GitOps is secure. I'm like, well, it helps in security, right? It'll help you along the way. I don't want to necessarily say it's do GitOps and it's secure. I'm like, well, there's other things to take into consideration, but you have a clear audit log of this convenient audit log, especially if you're using Git, of the state of changes of who made what change, why, and you have this kind of like log of like, oh, what happened on this date and on this time? It's like, okay, well, Justin made a change and scaled it up. That's why we're getting charged more, right? So that that sort of thing. And so you can do rollbacks as well, right? Since everything's in Git and you have that convenient history, you can roll back to a certain time. Those are a little trickier, I understand, with GitOps, especially with Git, especially with stateful applications. But you have that ability, right, to see where it was and make the rollbacks a little easier. And disaster recovery. This is probably like my favorite thing. The things that I've done, things that Justin has done as a support engineer is like, okay, well, build up a new cluster, point it to the Git repo, and everything magically works. And like there's little nuances there, but it actually is as easy as that, right? You may have to do something with storage and permissions, but like it really expedites the disaster recovery process using GitOps. And so that's kind of the things the idea what GitOps gives you and what the whole theory behind GitOps. So again, I'm an Open GitOps maintainer, so feel free to go to opengitops.dev, come up to me afterwards. We're going to talk about GitOps and what we're trying to do. And so, so now enter Argo CD. So before I go into Argo CD too much, there was kind of like two main players in the Kubernetes, in the CNCF landscape that came up around the time trying to solve a similar problem, right? I mentioned before at Intuit, our founders at Acuity created the Argo project because Intuit needed a way to on-ramp their developers and their engineers onto Kubernetes. They made a strategic decision to move to Kubernetes and cloud native, and they needed a way to on-ramp the workloads without teaching Kubernetes to developers, right? So they needed a quick way to migrate, and to do it in a way that developers doesn't need to know the minutia of Kubernetes. And that's where Argo CD got developed. Around the same time, a company called Weaveworks needed a way to manage their systems effectively, right? At that time, Weaveworks was a managed service provider. They had a lot of products, but internally, they're like, oh, we needed a way to manage our internal system and to recover. And if you ever read a blog about this, Alexis Richardson, former CEO of Weaveworks, has a funny story how it came up where someone fat-figured a config, took down an entire region, right? I'm pretty sure we've all been there. And they recovered it within a half hour, and he asked the question, how do we recover so fast, right? Like usually CEOs get upset when something goes down, but they're like, whoa, that was like fast recovery, why? And they were explaining kind of some of the process they were doing and kind of these tools they were building, and that's where Flux came from, right? And so there was like kind of the two backstories about these tools being developed, trying to implement some of these principles, right, that I just got through with GitOps, right? And so Argo CD. So Argo CD is made up of different components, right? Flux is kind of built as a tool set for like SREs and things like that. Argo CD was really built as a platform, so it's made up of like more components. And so there's something called the application resource, config management tools, applications, application health, app projects. Those things you're going to hear a lot from Argo CD only because they're abstractions from trying to use Kubernetes directly. And so this is actually Argo CD components, right? Oh, that's where that ended up. Anyways, that Argo CD components should be on the top there. But anyways, it's made up of different parts, right? And so the first part is actually the API server. So Argo CD's interface into Argo CD is the API server. So whether you're using the web UI or the CLI, you are interfacing directly with the API server. So you're not really using kubectl at all. You're interacting with Argo CD, and Argo CD does these things on your behalf. And it's at the core, it's made up of a few components, but the main components is the application controller, right? So the application controller, which I'll go deep in a second, is basically an application is an abstraction away from these loosely coupled components. So remember where I was talking about, like, Kubernetes, you have a service, maybe you have an application, simple application, right? You have a service, a deployment, and maybe an ingress, right? But like you want to deploy them together. Well, that's an Argo CD application, right? Argo CD application is basically a collection of these objects, right? It can be as simple as, service, deployment, ingress, or CRD, cron jobs, stateful sets, right? Like you can have, but that's kind of, it's a unit of measure, but basically it's a collection of objects is what an application controller is, what an application in Argo CD is. And then there's the repo server, right? And so repo server is essentially that component. Its only job, and I'll put this as simply as possible, is doing a git clone. That's all it does. So it looks at git, does a git clone, says, is there a change? Oh, there is a change. It notifies the application controller saying, hey, there's a change, you need to apply these new manifests. And that's all the repo server does. So there's that kind of like a separation there of, because that way the application controller has no idea about your credentials or anything like that. All it does is like, it just looks for a change, looks for a notification from the repo server. It's like, hey, there's a change. So that's what the repo server does. There's also connections to like Helm and stuff like that. The repo server does things like it renders a lot of these manifests from like if you're using tools like Customize or Helm. But the idea of the repo server is kind of that separation. It's like all it does, very high level, very simple, git clone. Is there a difference? Yes? Okay. Application controller, do your thing. So. And then there's the application set controller. Someone, I believe you walked up to talk about application sets. That's kind of a little bit more of an advanced topic. But from a high-level application set, all it does is it creates applications, right? So as you can imagine, you can have, your application are made up by different components, right? Simple front end, back end, database, and you need a way to kind of like deploy those in a way without creating a manifest for each one of them. An application set controller is essentially a templating engine to create applications. So it's kind of like an application factory is like what I like to call it. You fit it in something, buzzes and just spits out applications. So it's templating agent, right? And so all these core components interface with the Kube API, right? So Argo CD interfaces directly with the Kube API to do the things it needs to do. It uses a Redis cache for a lot of this. The repo server interfaces with Git. It also does with Helm, but for the most part, it interfaces with Git, so you don't have to connect everything with Git. And then there's Argo CD also includes Dex. So like I said before, Argo CD is a platform, and during the workshop, you'll see why. But Dex, just in case you need to use SSO, right? So Argo CD is a platform. Argo CD allows you to connect, create users, and abstracted users, different from the Kubernetes. You can assign policies and things like that, and a lot of people connect it to, something like GitHub SSO, Google Active Directory, right? Anything that Dex could connect to. So it interfaces with Dex. So these are kind of like the core components of Argo CD, there's other things that come along with it, but these are kind of like the core functionality. There's also like a notification engines. There's rollouts. There's other things to do like a little bit more complex kind of deployments. But this is like the core functionality and from what we are going to do during this workshop. So I mentioned Argo CD application. So Argo CD application, like I said before, is a unit of work. The Argo CD is basically a collection of related manifests, Kubernetes manifests specifically. And the basic principle of it is like you define your source, you define your destination, you define the sync policy. For example, the source is this Git repo. You look at this Git repo, you look at this path, and you're looking at the head, right? Or you can put in whatever branch or tag or whatever, but for the target revision. And the destination, you say this namespace on this Kubernetes cluster, right? So that's where the name comes into place. That could be name or server URL, right? Saying, all right, so this is the source. This is my source, and this destination, I want you to make this alike. And then you have sync policies where it's like if the namespace isn't create it for me before I start trying to apply these things. There's other sync policies like retries, auto heal, things like that. We're going to go over those in the workshop, right? You're going to see some of these sync policies in action as well. But it's essentially Argo CD is a CRD that you define your source and destination, your sync policy. One really cool thing about Argo CD, and you'll see this again in the workshop, is that it has a web UI, right? Essentially, when the folks over at Intuit were creating Argo CD, they heavily focus on the developer experience because again, that was the problem that we're solving, was developer trying to get their developers onto Kubernetes. So they built a feature-rich web UI. And it gives you things like a top-level health application. So like at a glance, I want to be able to see the health status of all my resources that are managed by this application. I want to see information about individual components, like a pod, right? Like if the pod is misbehaving, I want to be able to see that, and be able to define custom health checks. And so like if you have some workload that needs some song and dance to be able to say if it's healthy or not. All that bubbles up in the web UI, be able to see it from the interface. It really is, I would argue, the first Kubernetes UI that was out there. Well, the first one that was this feature-rich. And so, at that time, now there's, web UIs, right? Like, I used to work for Red Hat, OpenShift, that was a fantastic UI as well. But this was one of the first UIs that came up I would say, in Kubernetes, and had all this information, helped with things like triage and things like that. So we're going to see it all in action with the workshop here. So while you're getting your laptops out and getting ready and things like that, I want to pause here for a second and to see if you have any questions. I know I just dumped a bunch of information at you. It was kind of like a brain dump. I introduced a lot of like concepts and things like that. So are there any questions? So there's a question here. Yeah. I'm sorry, can you say it again? Oh, yeah, Mike, 1 second.
Will the slide be available after the workshop?
Oh, yeah. Is there a place to upload them, or we can make it available somewhere? Yeah, we can make it available for sure. Yeah, question?
This might be too deep in the weeds, but I've used Argo CD quite a bit, and your comment earlier. So this might be too deep in the weeds, but I've used Argo CD quite a bit already, and we've been playing around with operators and trying to do stateful stuff.
Yeah.
And do you guys recommend it for stateful, or we're like pulling out of that? And I'm just wondering. You commented on it, and it feels pretty hard, especially if you're going to move stuff around.
Yeah, it's tricky with stateful workloads with Argo CD, just because it's just tricky with Kubernetes in general, running stateful workloads. But there are tool sets in Argo CD that do things like are using like things like sync waves, pre-sync hooks. Argo rollouts.
There's doing that as well, but
upgrades are like upgrades a little tricky as well.
like if you just want to like move things around, it doesn't. You can't like move it between namespaces. I guess that was one issue we had.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
Yeah, it's like a destructive operation. I know it's like it's a limitation of Kubernetes more than Argo CD, but yeah, just wondering how you folks handle that, if at all. Is that just like a full migration with downtime?
That is. Do you know, Justin? Like I know you're.
And I'm aware this might not be the appropriate time for a deep level question like this, but I could ask after.
Yeah, no, we can have a conversation. Conversation because like I was gonna say, because it's kind of nuanced. I know we work with customers that do a lot of these things, and there is a lot of like, hand wavy things that you need to do. So, but no, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Questions, comments before we dive right in? No, cool. All right, we're feeling good. All right. So I'm going to pop on to the next slide. I do recommend taking a picture of it, scan the QR code, doing something with it, because there's a lot of information about the workshop on there. And I'm going to be moving back and forth. I'm going to be doing the workshop with you. So whatever issues you run into, I'll run into as well. So, keeps us honest as well about the workshop. Also, Justin is walking around as well, if you have. So there are 2 tabs, technically 3 eventually. We're going to have the workshop instructions are on that link. I'll work with my marketing to get a better slash, because Q02P9, like it's going to. I'm sorry? Oh, the link? Yeah, we tried doing something like that. I don't know. They didn't give us a place to upload the slides. So so this is here. Scan that QR code or take a picture and type it in URL. I'm going to leave this here for a little bit. I'm going to be going back and forth. You're going to need 2 tabs, right? One is the workshop instructions, and 2 is the workshop platform, right? So Acuity has a platform that manages Argo CD for you. We kind of carved out a training instance, so that way you can have like all the features without signing up for anything. This will take you. The workshop platform should take you to training.acuity.cloud. And so either sign up with your GitHub SSO, Google, or email, whatever. It'll drop you right in. But I'm gonna give it a second to let everyone kind of get this information on the laptop. We should have like printed this out. It would have been cool. Yeah.
So what would an unexpected error mean?
Uh-oh.
For the platform?
Oh, that is. So that's just an error. Let's see if it works for me. I'm gonna do Google. Okay. I did Google authentication. I don't know if you're doing it with the email. You may be running a different. I'm going to make this a little bigger. So you should see this, and then let me open this in another tab. So let me make this a little bigger as well. So we have the lab instructions on one tab, and the other one, after you log in, let me log out, kind of go through this process again. So yeah, maybe reload the web page.
Yeah, I'm getting a white page, but I'm thinking it might. Are you on Firefox? I'm on Chrome.
Ironically, I do run Edge as well on my Linux laptop. Anyway, I'm sorry? Yes, yes. So these are the links, and you'll open 2 tabs.
You're connected to Scale Public Cache Fast, right?
I am connected to slow, because it's faster, ironically.
Oh, you're just hanging on the loading? Yeah, I got the same white page started.
It's working? I wonder if it's...
What's that?
But- All right, I'm going to switch tabs really quick. So you should see, at least this comes up. And then the other tab, you should be like around here. So that's kind of where we are. I'm going to leave OS, so I'm going to come back. I'll leave this up for now.
I'm still downloading, actually. I think it's actually the internet that's slow.
Oh, the internet?
Yeah, it looks like I'm downloading over 2 megs of JavaScript.
Oh, fun.
This really big payload.
Okay.
And I kept refreshing since it's starting over, basically. There we go. Loading. I know, yeah, no, I'm the same.
So you got it to load? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it might be slow-ish. So we haven't gone too far. If you just walked in, we're here in the lab instructions, and the lab platform should look like this. If you're here, feel free to either continue with GitHub, continue with Google, or do a username password for an email. I'll drink some water, because... For what it's worth, I'm using Chrome. Oh, do you? Okay. Okay. Who's still having trouble? Those are zeros, yes. There's a couple people still having issues. It looks like mostly. Someone did mention that it might have been the Wi-Fi because it's. You fish is slow, and yeah. So if like half of you go on slow, half of you stay on fast, maybe. Oh, really?
If you're on fast and you get the white page that's loading, just give it like a full minute, because it seems to be a really big JavaScript payload.
Gotta tell Remington about that. Any way to you make the JavaScript a little lower? Okay. So have all of you at least gotten the this information? Yes? Okay, cool. I believe, oops, yeah. Okay. So you should be here. There's some cool information if you want to watch the video later, and that's totally fine. I think this is next video. But this, so what we're going to do is it's a little scenario, right? We're using dev containers on GitHub. Again, I mentioned that before, but worth reiterating on GitHub, code spaces. When we're on the platform, anytime something's asking about your organization, I'm just going to use my GitHub username. You can name it whatever you'd like. I just call it my GitHub username. We just kind of, keep it kind of mindless. We're going to be using dev for your environment. So anytime we talk about the environment name or anything like that, we're going to be using the word dev for your environment. Another thing to note, if you already have code spaces running and you're like on a free tier, you may have to like shut down or stop one of your instances for that. I know I ran into that before, and so yeah. And then we're going to be using a template from GitHub. So make sure when we get to that step on GitHub, when using the template, make sure you use this template. Don't fork it, because the lab won't work if you fork it, right? So like, oh, you can feel free to fork it, but then use this template, right? And so I'll go over how I do that as well. So again, prerequisites. Typically, we say, hey, you should be familiar with Kubernetes, GitOps, Argo CD. We're going to be using the Acuity platform, but we're going to have a test instance of that. And so if you're gonna, again, this is a public website. If you're gonna go home and try it out, I've done this on Kind locally using Docker Desktop. It works just fine. So, first step, right? So let's set up your environment. So there's a link here. It says click this link, and then use this template from this repo, right? And so I'm going to do that. So open this link. It'll let me make this a little bigger. So it'll use this template. Once you click that link, it'll take you to this page. Choose owner. I'm going to choose myself. Repository name. This will go back to the instructions. It tells you explicitly to use this name. So I'm going to copy and paste this. And again, as Nick, who's not here, couldn't make it. But this is important because the tutorial assumes that you'll be using this name. So it's going to be assumption, right? And so enter that as a repository name. And then click Create Repository. This will create the repo. Basically, it takes that template and creates this repo for you. This will take a little bit. So I'll kind of pause here for a little bit. So where we are in the instructions is we are in the set up your environment. We click this link to use the template. Make sure to name it this. And then we create that'll create the repository for you. So you should be here. So it should see here from your repo. We'll go into that a little later. And we're going to be using this repo, and we're going to be using code spaces from this repo. So this part actually takes a little bit. It'll actually give an opportunity for everyone to catch up because it takes a while to do. But basically, you're going to click the green code button, and you're going to use create code space on main. All right, so I kind of give you the screenshot, and it'll start building the code space for you. So if you click on code, little down space, it might have you here. Just make sure to click the tab where it says code spaces. It says create code space on main. Again, if you're on a free tier and you already have a code space, you may have to shut down to be able to use another code space. But click on create code space with main. This will open up a new tab, and it'll take a little while to load. I think it took about 2 minutes when I did this at home. So just like on my own Wi-Fi. So I don't know, on conference Wi-Fi it may take a little bit longer, but it'll take a while. So kind of leave that up and running. This is kind of where we are. This will give a chance for everyone to catch up if they're still having issues. So, is it real slow? Okay. Yeah, so this will take a minute. So if you're having issues, or if you need a bio break, this will take a while. It doesn't use a pre-build. Basically, we take the Microsoft Ubuntu image and basically run essentially from scratch. So it'll build, yeah. Yes. Okay.
My colleague saw your workshop, I think, last time you did it. So,
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
he was in the Bay.
Yeah. I'm actually doing a workshop at KubeCon in Paris. I fly out like in a couple days about Argo rollouts. So I'm actually doing another workshop about Argo rollouts. So when you get to this page, it actually runs a post like install script. So actually give it a minute. Even when you reach this page, there's going to be yet another script that runs. So just give it a little bit more time. I want to make this a little bigger because it's trying to see. So. Yeah, the issue, like this is setting up remote connection. I think it's the connection from here to there, right? There's stuff happening, but it hasn't reached. Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Oh, the email? Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because you do like plus, workflow, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now it makes sense why they give us 3 hours for this workshop, because by the time things load. Same, yeah. I always pre-record my demos, because. Rate limiting, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. What's that? Yeah, open with code space, yeah. Yeah, so from there, here, a question for those who are catching up. It says create code space on main. So when you click the little code thing, make sure you're on the code spaces tab, and then click create, and then you'll see this screen, and then which then should bring up this screen. There's also posts running scripts. Yeah, I didn't see any other hands raised. I think everyone's, oh, there's someone there has a question. But I think everyone's experiencing the same. Yeah.
We use code spaces every day.
Yeah.
We've done free use, but we've also made it where we're able to like pre-compile and publish that too.
Oh, really?
So we found like a couple actions. I can just point you to one of our public repos.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think it'll work plug and play for yours, but yeah, after
Yeah.
share that with you.
We actually, so usually we run this like locally. We tell people run kind and blah, blah, blah. That just was a nightmare. And we recently switched it to code spaces. So like we just like did this last minute, literally like 2 weeks ago. Like, let's use code spaces. And then like it worked. We're like, okay.
In action, that will literally run the dev container. So we have a separate repo where we just create our dev container.
Yeah.
And then publish that to GHCR. Then from the
Oh.
code space repo,
Yeah.
we just reference the publisher.
GHCR, yeah.
On top of that, if we want to run it on our own metal or other cloud,
Yeah.
EC2 or whatever, we could easily do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a simple action. I have to share that with you as well.
So for those of you who just walked in, I recommend taking out a camera, taking a picture of this, workshop's instructions, workshop platform on your laptop if you want to follow along. We're not too far along, so we're just waiting for everyone's code space to come up and running. So. Oh, look at that. Yeah, don't close this tab. This tab, getting it back up is going to be a nightmare. So, yeah. So I think even up here, it actually just runs a little script. I can check. Okay, cool. Yeah. Oh yeah. Let me put that back up. People are still catching up, so it's cool. A long time, yeah. Yeah, we have a good. I haven't actually checked my email because I'm doing this thing. So. Oh, good for yeah. That's if you have time. Yeah, I mean, or towards the end, or overrides and things like that. Yeah, it's. I've used. Yeah, I use application sets heavily, just because it's just so easy. Yeah, one way of doing things, I guess. Yeah, it's templating. It's so that's standardizing. Yeah, standardization is always good here. So if any of you here at least has like a prompt. A few, cool. All right. So there is a post install script that runs, and the most efficient way to check that, if you do K space GE and hit tab. If tab works, that means the post tab completion works with K. So usually I create an alias for K. You can use kubectl as well. But that is, if you do kind get clusters, you should see dev there. This is very tiny. Let me make this a little bigger. 1 second. Yeah. So here. So it should kind of look like this here. So if you do kind get clusters, it should say dev. And then if you do kubectl get pods, -A, you should see something like this, right? So I'll leave this up for a little bit for those who are catching up. So like if you have your dev container up and running, you can run these commands. If you can run these commands and you see something similar output, that means you are right on track and you're running almost ready to start using Argo CD. So how's it? Scale it up a little bit, yeah. Okay. So you see that? Oh, you see them running? Okay, cool. This looks like there's a few of you who are going ahead, which is awesome. That's fine. I'm a little slow to try to make sure everyone's kind of on the same page. So.
I seen the terminal and
Oh,
something.
yeah, that I was there. It takes a while there for there because there's some pre and post scripts that run. That right? So it'll take like a minute or two. So. Oh, it's scary. I considered that too. Well, we don't like refreshing the page, yeah. I mean, the code space does stay up. Like, I mean, you can connect to it later. It's just, you're deciding. So at this point, you should be about here, right? You'll see this page. You'll have your code space, the repo up and running, and you should have this up. So. Again, how many of you are here? Show of hands, at least here. Okay, cool. I'll have another pause section for those who are trying to catch up. So once you're here, again, if you do get clusters, you should see dev, kubectl get pods dash capital A. You should see a very, very tiny Kubernetes cluster. Cool. All right. Again, that's step 3.2, verify your environment, make sure things are up and running, right? So now we're actually gonna go to the platform, Qt platform. So here, there's some info about actually doing it on the, on our actual platform. We have a separate platform separate from our production instance, so you don't have to worry about that. But we're gonna go through the similar steps, right? And so here, I am logging in with Google. You can do with GitHub. You can do it with email address, username, password, standard, whatever you choose. I'm going to do it with Google. And again, I think a lot of you came here, right? Again, I struggle with you. Oh, no. Yeah. Just trying to get, there we go. All right. How many of you have at least been here or are here? Cool, a little bit? All right. So what we're going to do is we're on the Qt platform. First, you have to create an organization before you can do that. So there's a convenient link here. Please create or join an organization. You click that. New organization. I'm going to call mine, again, my GitHub username. You call it foo, whatever. But I use my GitHub username just to, and then once that's created, we're going to create an Argo CD instance here. So here, organization, yeah. So now we're going to, so now we're about step 7, right? Create Argo CD. Click on Argo CD on the left-hand side, and click on create. Here, the instance name, we're going to call it, I believe the instructions say cluster manager, so I'll just do that. We're going to use, you can choose your Argo CD version here. I'm going to use 2.10.1, right, version, because I believe that's the one I tested on. And the little create button, and this will go into progressing state, right? So that's up and running. Or going the process of up and running. This will take also, again, a little while to provision. And so what we're going to do is we're going to, while it's pending the installation, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a user. So we're going to go to settings. We're going to, so once you click on the settings tab, you're going to scroll down on the left-hand side. There's going to be, if it lets me, there we go. The system accounts. So under security and access on the left-hand side, there's system accounts. Oops, I clicked on the wrong one. System accounts. And then we're going to enable the admin account. Click confirm. Set password. I'm going to just generate a password. So I'll do that again, because I did that pretty quick. Click on set password. You can either set your own username and password. That's totally fine. Or you can just generate one. Click on generate, actually sets the password randomly, and you can click copy. And then close it. That actually sets the password to some random string of characters, right? And so if you ever lose your password or forget it, you just come back here and just reset it. And so, yeah, again, regenerate password, bottom right, set password, hit close. And then it's going to ask you to log into Argo CD. So it might not be up yet. No, not yet. Okay. Yeah. So my gear's a little spinning. Yours probably is too. I'm going to wait. One, gives everyone a chance to catch up, and two, gives a chance to for my instance to be up and running. So it might take a little while. Yeah. So if everyone's hitting it at once, yeah, it might take a little bit for this to run here. It actually does give you a, what's that? Oh, question? Yeah, so the version I selected was 2.10.1. So that's the one. As long as it's 2.10, it should be fine. That's where the lab was written for 2.10.
Does it make a difference if we use the Acuity build versus, I think, the open source? Is that the other story?
There's really no, there's a few differences, but it's mainly like security patches and things like that. You know. Yeah. Acuity-specific features, yeah. So usually, like, there are features there that we're pushing upstream that we release first on our platform. So they'll be on the platform first for our customers before they actually get pushed upstream. So.
But not everything ends up like open source.
Not everything, no. No. So which is we have the different builds. Yeah, question?
I select the upstream Argo CD.
Mm-hmm.
The upstream platform is a little bit different architecturally compared to Argo CD, which makes the push the method that syncs stuff and connects to cluster. This way, would it install the upstream way where Argo CD is running on the cluster?
Yeah, so the so both ways on the run on the Acuity platform. So we host it for you, whether you use the Acuity version or whether you use the upstream version. And also for both, we use an agent. Ours is an agent-based design. So we use an agent to communicate back to our platform. So which is the reason why using kind works, is because you don't need to open up API, right? So there's like an agent running kind of to proxy the information, but it's mainly the Acuity version is like CVE patches or you know, little features that we're pushing upstream that haven't landed yet. Authentication, with what respect? Oh, SSO integration, yes, yeah, like authentication, SSO integration, things like that, yeah. Yeah, you do. You can manage it with the Acuity platform, but yeah. So any of you have the green heart? All right, a few of you. Okay. And yeah, who has a gear still spinning? Anyone? Okay. Oh, so someone over here does. Okay. Oh, gears over there. So once you get this little green heart, there's this little weird UUID type link here. If you click that, it'll drop you into those who have used Argo CD should be familiar with this UI. It drops you in here. Username is admin, and password, you just paste the generated password if it's still in your copy buffer, or if you set your own password, go ahead and enter your password, click sign in. and don't remember that. And you should see this, right? And this is Argo CD. So Argo CD's UI. Oh. So yeah, so now you have a fully, okay, so this is kind of where we are. All right, so you should have this repo, right, up in the tab. You should have your dev containers here, up and running. With the information here, the Acuity portal, right, that we use to, spin up and, self-host Argo CD. And we're using, this is the Argo CD UI. So we should all be relatively here. Give it another few minutes for those still waiting on the gear or trying to catch up. What is that? I wonder what screen that is. What's that? Oh, you have, what does it say? No matching applications. Oh, you might have a filter on, actually. I wonder if you have a filter on yours. Oh, interesting. Okay.
But I can still create one like you can.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. I wonder why it dropped you on that page. Some of you are seeing different pages, like with the little magnifying glass. That should be okay. That's just a different view for whatever reason. I wonder, like, oops, I didn't want to do that. Okay. I messed up. Don't do what I did. Okay. All right, next thing we're going to do is, because, yeah, we're starting to run out of time. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to, we have this kind cluster running inside our dev container, and we're going to add an agent to it, and basically it installs Argo CD for you. So the way to do that is on this page here on the platform. As you may have guessed it, you need to go to your clusters tab. So once you're on your clusters tab, click on connect cluster. So this is very, very important. You need to call the cluster dev. It's basically the same name as the cluster name on kind. Click on connect cluster, and then this will drop this big old thing here that you just copy to the clipboard. Once you copy that to the clipboard, go back to your dev container and just paste it. Allow. Okay. Yes. And it should kind of look like that, right? It'll look like that. It's some, token, blah, blah, blah. And it'll run those things. Again. Yes, yeah, now everyone is inside now. Yeah, yeah. So again, click connect cluster, type make sure to call it dev. That's very important. And then it'll once you do that, it'll have this. You copy that to the clipboard. Once you copy that to the clipboard, paste it, right? You paste that, it'll look kind of like that, and it'll apply all these manifests. What I like to do is I like to run a watch. So let's do watch kubectl get pods -n acuity with a K. So once you run that command, you enter, and you should see the agent up and running and start installing things. Again, kind of like what I went through in the presentation. There is the application controller, there's the Redis server, there's the repo server, kind of the components that I was talking about before, that it's installing it in the on this local cluster here. It does take a little bit to run. You should see, oops, let me close that. Right now it's you should see a question mark because it's trying to add running these containers here. Once this is up and running, it'll send that back to the platform to tell it it's healthy. So that's why I kind of like to run a watch on here. There's a good indication. So how's the platform holding up? Good. All right. All right, let's look at better over than under, I guess. Better ask for. Oh, there's a question down there. Someone has a. Yeah, just in case. Wow. How many of you have gotten here? Okay, cool. All right. Okay, I'll leave this up.
Oh, so even though you installed the open source version, it still has a QA agent.
Yeah, the agent, because yeah, that's how it.
First tunnel or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Still connecting?
Yeah, mine says container creating, so I think it's an issue with code spaces
Yeah.
because
So your agent's connected?
yeah, agent's connected.
Still green?
It's just waiting for all
Yeah, still.
the health of this guy, the controller, the notifications controller, ironically. Although the init container there is taking a while for the repo server.
Yeah, it's got a down. Well, usually once the agent connects, that'll kick in.
Yeah. We thought cloud was going to solve everything, right? Oh, yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Throw more computers at it. Yeah, that's what I was trying to. Yeah. Oh, is it TLS search thing? Okay.
What's happening is the
Uh,
disconnected. That'll download. So once that syncs, it'll bring in all the information.
s- what shows you all the?
What's that?
Well, I was just trying to see. It does show you all the environment variables.
Try kicking over the application controller. Do a rollout restart of the application controller.
Delete it or roll out?
Roll it out. Rollout restart.
Restart Acuity, deployment of the which one?
Application controller.
Application. Need a dash controller.
Let's try that.
Okay.
Watch the code.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, gotcha.
That one never came up either, huh?
Yeah, Well, the notifications control, I don't know what's wrong with the
Yeah,
notification.
that'll come back later.
Yeah. But the controller, mm, it's not, it's just slow, it looks like. What's that?
What's your,
Oh, the ID is, what was that? LK7IL. And go. Let me do the watch. Yeah, so I think it's the get pods. Yes.
Is there anything that I can talk to the conference organizers with that would help you out at this point?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's just the Wi-Fi. It's just slow. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, it's. Yeah, I mean, it's understandable. Yeah. hmm It is a good problem, though. Yeah.
I'll let them know.
It's like. Yeah, see, be ready for. Yeah. Okay. CK get. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Failed to watch config map. Interesting. Maybe. I'm thinking. Yeah. I'm gonna try something that drastic here. Not deployments get, but delete.
The application controller is going to be the syncer pod.
Oh, the syncer pod, the sidecar. Yeah.
That's what the
Gotcha.
check the logs on that.
I heard someone got it further ahead than me.
Just take time.
I just might take time. Yeah. I'm a little impatient. Looks like. Also, the sidecar notifies the agent, and then the
Right,
agent.
it pulls everything in and all the configs, and then once
Gotcha.
that's there, everything will restart. It's just this morning.
Well, yeah, we don't have 80 people.
These are like 30 minutes it's been here.
Oh, really? Oh. Yeah.
The syncer.
Well, the syncer,
Well, you got to do application.
the application controller, and then -C syncer, right?
I don't think you have to do C anymore. You just space it and tab it. You should find it syncer.
It just says, has prevented get secrets. Refactor failed to watch secrets. Get client go. Yeah. I think it's maybe trying to, the rate limit reaching out from code spaces. Yeah, it's that sinker pod. It's just vomiting errors. Yeah, no errors on there. Yeah. Go, 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 go. Has anyone gotten beyond this? No, one person, two. Okay. Yeah, now you're the rabbit. Yeah, you were the turtle. Now, yeah, now you just passed me. What's that? Are they? Oh, you see them there? Okay. Again, if you are past this, feel free to keep going. You're one of the lucky ones. Feel free to keep going with the lab. The instructions are right there, so I'll try to catch up. So when I first tested this, I actually ran into this. Yeah, and I think what was happening is trying to download things that were rate limiting me, like trying to download at that time for whatever reason. I did do something. What I did is I deleted the code space and restarted it, but like that'll take forever here. I'm assuming it is. I'm assuming it's like a rate limiting thing on that.
I think that's the problem.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a sidecar that tries to download a lot of things and then inject that in. I think it's just taking a while to download those TLLs. Yeah.
Once the agent's connected, it connects to the control plane, they sync up, and then it pulls all those configurations that are missing.
So yeah, the TLS is missing because it hasn't downloaded it yet. So
Is there any way we can force it? I think it is stuck.
time, yeah, it's just gonna take some time.
Or the install agent, this is separate.
Yeah, so like that's just taking time. That's the step we're in right now.
Just curious, things that it's downloading, you said TLS.
Yeah, information to connect to the agent. So,
When the agent's connected, it goes to the control plane, pulls the configuration that it needs from the
This is your control plane, right?
yes.
on the trading instance. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And so those configurations, is it, because I see application controller, Libra control, Libra server, Redis. I'm just curious, is it like the app projects and everything else?
No, those are all hosted on the control plane, but with our agent-based model and architecture,
Yeah.
basically when you start facing scaling challenges and you have hundreds of clusters,
Yep.
you have an application controller and clusters so the work's distributed out.
Okay.
So you don't have one application controller. You're crunching for hundreds of clusters. Each cluster gets its own.
Okay.
So it's much more scalable.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Well, I mean, it's supposed to be every 2 seconds, right? But is yours running at least, or? Yeah. That's a weird error, though. Really? Oops. Wait, really? Oh. Does it use the agent to download the configurations? Or does it go okay. Yeah. But it's through the agent, right? Does it go out on its own? Oh, okay. Oof. All right. Yeah, go up and do edit as YAML. Yeah, dev, okay. Yeah. Right, done.
That's right.
Yeah, that looks right.
Go to your dev space.
Save.
This is what we're waiting on.
Okay,
It's not
so
gonna
it
do
can't
anything.
authenticate now.
Yeah.
All those gotta be running. You're doing it right though.
Yeah, I don't think this will ever kick over, to be honest with you. The agents? I just deleted and reinstalled the agent, so we'll see what happens. So yeah, so I don't know if I made it worse or better, but we'll see. This is the first one doing it this way, yes. We thought it was going to be better, yeah.
I mean, to be honest, when I first started using code spaces about 2 years ago, they used to go down so often. So
Oh, so it's, yeah.
at least it's online.
Yeah. We did a different workshop, because we have an advanced workshop, and code spaces worked fine there.
I think that's one they call it the advanced one. He showed me a bunch of tricks after that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So this one's obviously much shorter. I think it was an all-day workshop.
Yes, that's the one.
All the app sets and go templating.
Yes, yeah, the advanced workshop, and we do that with code spaces, and that works fine, but
For what it's worth, we were using Kind for a while as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we found K3D.
K3D, yeah, we were actually thinking about switching something lighter weight, right?
What happens is when the agent connects, it's going to communicate to the control plane around what configuration, and it'll sync it. And then all that information will get there. We're just waiting for that connection to get established. That wasn't part of that initial installation. Yes. Yeah. Because every cluster will be different.
I was just thinking of that, yeah. Is that what you're doing, K3D?
Trying to install my agent.
Does it work?
I know it's
Oh, it's just the Wi-Fi, yeah.
Still has the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I'm trying to install it in a different separate cluster. I think it's the dev spaces, Wi-Fi,
Dev spaces,
or the code spaces.
code spaces?
Yeah.
GitHub code spaces is right
it looks, we don't know, there's something weird because, yeah, because we're using code spaces and like that's separate from this Wi-Fi, right? It's hosted over there.
Put it straight on the Wi-Fi.
So,
So it might be code spaces for the Wi-Fi?
it's a combination of both, but yeah. Depending on where they are, like in the beginning it was the Wi-Fi, but now it seems to be like we're being some rate limiting something weird with code spaces.
Yeah. You're not the first one.
Yeah, yes. The what? Yeah. Yeah. We. Yeah, his went quicker, yeah. Yeah, still doing container creating. Okay, since we're stuck, what I'm gonna do is, yeah, still same error. What I'm gonna do, I mean, since we're running out of time anyway. Yeah, because it's almost 4, right? We're here to 5? Okay, cool. I'm gonna try something drastic. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, bold, you're exactly right. I'm just gonna delete it. Maybe it'll be better. Maybe it'll be better if I do it when no one else is doing it. Yeah, about 85, yeah. Yeah, well, what I think, well, because we're all on the same Wi-Fi, I think like it all's coming, since it's NATed, it's coming from the same IP, so maybe it's some rate limiting, something weird like that, I don't know. But, yeah, but once you're on it, oh, it doesn't really support IPv6? Oh, interesting. Sounds about right. I think most people are waiting. I think. Yeah. Oh, me switch to SAT and just kind of just show the. Yeah, it might. We might be better off switching to a demo. Hold on.
They have some data centers too. Okay, maybe. But like they've had their own slash 8 since earlier on. Like they didn't get it to do cloud stuff. I think it only costs $500 here to keep it. There's like some fees you probably have to sign to an ASF. I don't think they could take it away from you to have yet.
Yeah, still running to the same thing. Yeah.
I spun up new cluster in
Uh huh.
GKE and it still has that same config map issue.
Oh, really? In GKE? Oh, that's a platform problem. He's running this. He's running in GKE. He says getting the same issue. Yeah. Yeah.
Are they going to put an IP address on all the cars? They are doing a huge revamp of cars from the herd, bringing all the software development in-house. I don't know if that correlates back to Oceans Communications. Ooh, list of /8. I think it's like they're on a lot of fire. Formerly PSI. So that makes sense. Mercedes-Benz and Comcast still have 5 fans. Oh, that's Mercedes. Because some IT guy said we should buy this. We should get this. It's funny, I was telling my colleague that as well. He showed my just buy some just buy an ITV block before it goes up even more. So what I found is, so I racked up the same problem. I found 2 of the cheapest providers. You could go to IOS for $2 for DPS, so you can grab an IPv model, you can do a reverse tele, proxy that somewhere else. Or you could do light sale off AWS for $375. At that point, you get the reliability of AWS with the premium with the last IP, or any other premium. And you can do stacks for free. So you basically get a reserved IP off AWS for $375. So that's where you actually use that for local development environments. We do like, give these routes. It's like reverse tunnels, expose like your ingress or whatever on Kubernetes. But if you're doing it behind a NAT, you can't really do that. So then you run a VM somewhere else. And we basically for the IP.
What's that?
How about you?
Doing good. Doing good.
We're talking
And
with
so we wrote those scripts because they actually do have
I use Argo CD at work.
Oh,
And when you create an application that creates an
Yeah.
Argo CD resource in the cluster,
yeah.
there's no Argo CD resource or application resource in the downstream cluster.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
It gets created.
So it gets created on the hosted Argo CD platform. Yeah.
Is there a way to look at it, or that's
Is there? Is there like to do like get like kubectl get apps, blah blah blah. No, there isn't a way. No.
still trying to wrap my head around the platform? Come back and ask me.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, yeah, we have a.
Are you guys in a rush after this?
No. No.
That's one we're easy now. We were easy one. You have 2 offices in Portugal. I guess we should just move to the Yeah, so those guys, their team's like global, and they're also in school. Sounds like you're as well. And you guys are running around the work. So which version did you go with?
What's that?
Which version did you go with?
Version? I went with 2.10.1, but I But AK, yeah, but the AK, the latest AK one. Default one. Yeah, the default one, yeah.
Previously you went with a different one.
Yeah, I went with a different one. Right now I'm just testing to see.
I think this is what is working for you.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
That's working.
Yeah. So I used the platform, and the agent installed just fine. Yeah, so it's running. Are you? I mean, you try a live upgrade. Okay. So what I ended up doing, if you'd like, you can follow along. But what I ended up doing is I went to acuity.cloud. That is our production instance, right? And so I'm going to be doing, essentially switching to a demo versus a workshop, because it looks like our training instance, there's an issue with the training instance. So it's not, we thought it was code spaces, they were rate limiting us, something like that. We're running some tests. It looks like it is the training instance that we set up. It looks like there's some issues there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of like switch into a more of a demo, right? So where we left off, or what I left off, is I installed the agent, which is now up and running. It has the Argo CD application controller, the Redis, the repo server, all the stuff that I was explaining to you before, if you can remember that long ago. And so, which is around here, right? And so, what this goes through, and again, if you want to run this, back at home, or when you're, or maybe on a more stable Wi-Fi with Kind or whatever, this will be up. And what we're going to do is create an application in Argo CD. This is going to be a Helm application. We're going to do, we're going to use the repo that we're in. So, for example, let me, down here, what we're going to do is we have under apps, we have the guestbook application. Let me make this a little smaller. There we go. So basically, an Argo CD application takes a source, and which is the repo that we are working on, and the destination, right? And again, we assume you're using dev as the name, which is why we say that that's important. Here, this is pointed to, say, this repo and in this path, so you can actually see that here. If I click on that, you can see that it is a Helm chart that is stored inside of Argo, stored inside of a Git repo, but you can actually point it directly to a Helm repo. You don't have to install it on Git. Basically, this is the chart, the values file. That's all included in the repo itself. So again, switching back to apps. When we go here, if I click on settings and I click on clusters, it shows that I did add that dev cluster there. I can see that here as well. I can click on new app. I can fill this in using the wizard. Here, it'll ask you all these questions, but you can actually edit as YAML. I could take all this information here. Right, enter it there. Click save and click create. This will actually, what's happening here is the repo server actually went out and did a git clone, right, from the repo against head, and looks in the path and it says, okay, you want this workload running on this cluster, but is not only are you out of sync, but it's missing. You don't actually have anything there. So if I actually click on this card, It'll tell you that, you want a service and you want a deployment. And again, it says the resource is not found. If we go back to this, what is the key combination to get there it is, okay. So let's go back up here. If I do get pods, right, it's just the agent, the Acuity agent and the default Kubernetes. So easiest way to click sync here, let's synchronize that. So what it's doing now is that the application server takes the information from the repo server, says, okay, I'm going to apply this information to my Kubernetes cluster. And if I look back here, if I do a get pods, you see, oops, you'll see it actually a little easier. You can see that it's actually deploying this Helm chart to the cluster, right? And so it'll give you kind of like an overview here. Let me make this a little smaller so you see. It gives you the application status, right? It's healthy. That health information actually comes from Kubernetes, right? It's taking a look at the health information that Kubernetes bubbles up and displays that. It says it's synced, meaning that your desired state and your running state are the same. The last sync, so the last thing that happened is that it was successful, right? Has information about the Git commit, right? Information about like who authored it, all that stuff here. I can drop into here. I can look at the logs from the UI here. I can look at my endpoint slice service. All that information, I could see that from an overview here. So from the UI. So this is kind of like the idea that Intuit had when they first created this. Like, yeah, we want a platform that I'm able to deploy my workloads and manage them without actually, having to type the Kubernetes command, right? I did all this from the UI, after I have it set up. So, and you'll see this here. One thing I like, I do like to call out is that if I do, I don't think I have Helm installed. If I do Helm ls, right, there's nothing there, right? And you're like, whoa, you installed a Helm chart, but Helm isn't there, right? And so those of you who are not familiar with Argo CD, Alex, actually, one of our co-founders, he says that Argo CD is a glorified kubectl, meaning that I want to manage Kubernetes with raw Kubernetes files, meaning that that whether you use Customize or Helm, what Argo CD does is it renders those manifests, and then it applies them. Long way of saying Argo CD does a Helm template, pipes to kubectl apply. So that's why you don't see that here, and that's a philosophical choice. Is Argo CD wants to work with raw manifests. So if you're working with Argo CD, there's a few kind of advanced users here, but those that haven't been using them or are thinking about using it, just keep that in mind, especially if you're a heavy Helm shop. Argo CD is going to render those for you. If you want them to use the Helm thing, there's things like config management plugins and things like that. You can make Argo CD kind of do that. But the idea, the original creators, is like, we just want to work with raw Kubernetes manifests. So little sidetrack there, little information about that there. You have a question?
On that
Yeah.
topic, does Argo, not does it prefer, but how would you describe the difference between like using a helm file.yaml
Yeah.
or let's say a chart.yaml in the context of Argo? Does it matter?
Yeah, so with Helm file, yeah, actually with you can do a lot more with Helm file. If you're going to use Helm file, you actually have to tell Argo CD to use Helm file. It doesn't know how to use Helm file. So Argo CD, you have to use something called the CMP, which stands for Config Management Plugin. It'll handle Helm natively. It'll handle Customize. It'll handle natively. It'll even do JSON it natively. But that's it. Like if you need anything else, like if you're using, what are some of these other things? Like there's one from Grafana that does it, and There's another one, Tanami, whatever. There's other ones, right, that is used to render Kubernetes manifest. You have to tell Argo CD how to do that with the config management plugin. So if you want to look that up, config management plugin, Argo CD, you do plug that into your DuckDuckGo or whatever, Google. That's kind of like the information you're going to need there. So, all right. So now changes, right? So syncing changes manually. So let's look at the, instead of running Helm upgrade guestbook, blah, 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 right? You actually, since this is GitOps, and GitOps tool, what we want to do is we want to make the change in Git, right? And so we're going to change the image tag. So let's, again, go back down here, and we're going to go to the values file. And I'm going to change this image tag to, let's go 2.0. Right and quit that. I do a git add. Don't do it this way, but I'll do it anyway. Git add, git commit. Something like changed image tag. Git push origin main. Okay, cool. So going back here, let's do, so the reconciliation loop is about every 3 minutes for Argo CD. Completely tunable, right? Some people like it longer, some people like it shorter. Default's 3 minutes. But instead of sitting here waiting 3 minutes, I figured you guys waited long enough. I'm going to click on refresh. What refresh does is that it tells the repo server, hey, go check to see if there's anything new, right? Basically, get ls remote, look at the hash, see if there's a difference. And if it is, it'll download the difference, right? And there's a hard refresh, right? I'll give you a little bit more information. Hard refresh, there's difference. Hard refresh basically does an RM of wherever it get cloned, and then it does a git clone again. Whereas refresh does a get ls remote blah blah blah, right? Just to see if there's a fresh copy. So that's the difference there. As you see here, it says your app is healthy. Again, Kubernetes, your app it may be up and running, but my desired state changed. And it doesn't match the running state. It says out of sync. So by default, Argo CD doesn't set up auto-syncing, none of that, right? It leaves it up to you. So in order to get this in sync, we click synchronize. There's different ways to do synchronization, right? There's partial syncs. There's, you can say only sync things that are out of sync, right? There's certain ways to optimize some of this, but by default, it just reapplies everything all at once. And as you see here, replica set changed because the pod updated to a different image. Let me show you something. Again, we're going off script since the platform wasn't working for you guys. I wonder if there's another, let's change the replica count, right? Let's do 2. Should be, if anyone knows a shortcut to just push it real quick. Oops. And then I just kind of want to show refresh. So you first have to sync, and then if you want to refresh. You can do a refresh, or wait 3 minutes, or do, yeah, yeah, exactly. Or use a webhook. Again, I was talking about GitOps. It's like you're going to use webhooks because sometimes you want the change to happen immediately after you make a git commit, right? And you'll set up a webhook for Argo CD's API to be like, check now versus waiting 3 minutes, right? But if you click here in the UI, it gives you more information. But what's really cool is that it shows you the live manifests, right? Which is all the, YAML garbage. Click on the desired, right? Again, that's the desired state. If you click on diff, it'll show you the diff. Which is like, it'll show you the inline diff, which is right here. Better way to do that is there's a compact diff that just shows you, instead of the whole thing. So it'll actually show you what that difference is, right? So that's something I forgot to show you. Let me, the next part is, blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, auto sync and self heal. So this is the auto sync, where is it here? Yeah. So again, I said by default, Argo CD just kind of by default sets it up this way, meaning like if there's a change or anything, it'll just notify you. It doesn't really do anything. You have to go in and do that yourself. If you click on details, so let me go here on guestbook. Oops. Details. Down here, we can click enable auto sync. So it says, are you going to enable auto sync? Yes, I am. Self-heal. Enable that. Yes. So what self-heal does is essentially is like as soon as it detects, as soon as it detects a change, meaning like once the 3 minutes runs and it detects a change, it'll automatically apply those, meaning that it'll do that for you without you having to click that sync button. Prune resources. I always enable this, but be careful with it, meaning that like if someone's at, this is like true GitOps, right? If something's running on the cluster that is not in Git, it'll delete those resources. You may or may not want that. So that's what prune resources is, meaning basically exactly how it is in Git, I want that exact, even if it means deleting things, right? So that's what prune resources means. I always enable it. Self-heal is basically, it'll run the sync. But by default, it won't prune resources. I always just enable it. So this here, actually, I think I need to run a patch. You're seeing some behind-the-scenes things, so 1 second. Where is my patch? Where did we put the patch? There it is. In order for you to see this working. So this is not, this is something specific to the Qt platform. We made some optimizations, and I revert some of those just so you can see, right? So then let's go here in the lab, auto sync, cool. All right, so let's do another change. So let's go to values. This replica count to 3. Add, commit, push. Okay, again, we're not going to wait the 3 minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click refresh. But this time, as you see, as soon as I click refresh, it notices the change and automatically scales that up. I have 3 pods now. So that I basically didn't have to like sync or do any webhooks or anything like that. As soon as it detected that change, it'll sync those for you. And then I could even go here and then delete this deployment. Just cross our fingers. So as soon as I delete that deployment, Argo CD says, whoa, 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 whoa. You told me you wanted a deployment here. Your desired state says that. Someone deleted this. I'm going to redeploy it. And so, and I can do that with any resource, right? The service here, guestbook, delete that service. Argo CD says no, like out of band changes, and that's what auto sync, enabling auto sync gets you with Argo CD. So. So we did that, and then, okay. So this is kind of so now you see how Argo CD does those things with Kubernetes resources. What's also really cool about Argo CD is that it does these with Kubernetes resources, but Argo CD applications, the application manifest itself is actually a Kubernetes resource as well. And so a lot of practitioners came up with something called an app of apps. So all that is an Argo CD application that deploys other Argo CD applications. And the reason for that is like originally it was for bootstrapping. Bootstrapping, I can just do Argo, kubectl apply my parent application, and all the children, basically all the other applications get deployed that way, including Argo CD managing itself and all of this other resources. So basically, you kind of get a convenient bootstrapping out of the box with Argo CD. You can do other things like someone mentioned like sync waves and things like that, ordering. You can order things that way as well. So kind of do application dependencies. Actually, if you follow Acuity on Twitter, or if you follow me on Twitter, I actually have a blog that just came out today about application dependencies using Argo CD. So that's what the app of apps is, right? And so if you look at it here, there's an app of apps definition. What's really cool about app of apps, the definition is there's nothing special about it. It's another Argo CD. There's just another Argo CD application, right? It says, this is the repo URL, the one we're using, and the path is apps. If I look under apps here in this directory, you see the guestbook app that we're just using, and there's another app called Portal, also that is there as well. So basically, Argo CD application is going to deploy these two applications. So if I go up here with app of apps, and then again, if I just do a new app, edit as YAML, and then I click save here. And actually, let's enable auto sync. Where is that? I think it's down. What's that? Yeah, auto sync for the app. But where is the? Actually, there we go. Sync policy, automatic, self heal. Again, prove resources. Just this is how I am. So yeah, you notice this bootstrap, right? That's the name of the app or the parent application. And that deploys guestbook that's already deployed. So it didn't have to do anything, right? There's no diff, right? The desired state and the running state, there was nothing, so it hadn't had to do anything. But then it created this other application called Portal, right? This one isn't set up for auto sync, and so I have to sync this manually. So then that deploys that as well. So what's really cool about this is just delete guestbook, just delete the application. You notice the Bootstrap app noticed that it was missing. If I go here, it noticed that other application was missing. And so, let's sync that. And then, magically, guestbook comes back. So like you can see that if I delete this app, guestbook, delete that app, that's gone. If I sync so that's it. You can kind of see that like how you can use Argo CD to kind of manage other Argo CD components, having Argo CD manage itself. By using something we call app of apps pattern, right? And so that is what most people used it for. There's a question? Yeah. So deploy changes to the apps individually, meaning? Yeah, yeah. So you can still change things in the guest book individually, right? So the app of apps, all it does is just make sure your application definitions are there. You can still manage those other ones individually. There's certain things that it doesn't allow you to do, right? So like if I do, there's certain caveats. Right, okay, cool. So that's auto sync. So like if I go to guestbook here and if I do enable auto sync and then enable self heal, this just enable all of this here. since I have an app of apps running, if I sync this, and then I go back to guestbook, these things should be, oh wait, I think I disabled that. I think I did, yeah. Okay, normally what would happen, I actually wanted to error out and it didn't. The one time I wanted to error out is because I didn't set up auto sync here. If I set it up in the UI, the parent app will overwrite that. Because now my applications, instead of being defined in the UI, they're defined in Git. Really, that's really the only thing you need to look out for. It's like, oh, the UI isn't doing things. It's like, it doesn't write back to Git. It just does whatever Git does. So if you're managing things with app of apps, you really have to go really all in on GitOps, because it's like now you have to think, well, now I'm managing things via Git, and the UI mainly becomes like a visualization, observation type of thing. And mentioning that, ironically, or I guess on that same note, Argo CD ranks number 3 in observability tools, which is really funny because it's like they didn't really build it as an observability tool. But it does rank number 3, like number 3 or number 4 in the CNCF of observability tools, only because once everyone's all into GitOps and managing these in Git, it actually does become more of an observation read-only thing than anything else. So as far as the workshop, that's the workshop in its entirety. We still have some time if those who are still trying to get it up and running. Justin is trying to get the training instance back up, but are there any other lingering questions? Look, I saw someone's hand up there. Yeah, you. The reconciliation loop? The default is 3 minutes. 3 minutes, yeah. And you can, again, adjust that for whatever makes sense to you. Some people turn it off. There's something called, and you just use webhooks, which is fine. It's not GitOps, but not everyone's going to adopt that, so that makes sense. Argo CD is flexible enough. There's also what we call sync windows, meaning like, I only want the sync people to be able to, whether it be people, APIs, robots, whatever, to be able to sync certain amount in a certain amount of time, right? Like off hours, right? Like I don't want a sync to happen during on hours and off hours, but so that's completely adjustable. It's 3 minutes, but I set it to 5 seconds for the demo. Yeah. Any other questions? There was right here, glasses. Yeah. Yes, for Argo CD, but that's you kind of have to hunt for that a little bit. If you're using Acuity, we do keep a history of, this is going to take a little while to bubble up, but we do keep a history of what, if you're using the platform, but this data comes from Argo CD itself. You just kind of have to look in the logs for things like that, yeah.
There's actually a dashboard, so if you enable the service monitor in the free open source Argo.
Yes, yeah.
Prometheus stack or whatever, like you have Grafana and Prometheus installed. There's a Grafana dashboard.
Yeah, so yes.
Well maintained, but and I don't know how to read half the charts.
Yeah, yeah. There's like a Grafana. There's something you can enable and point it to like a Grafana dashboard or something, so that way it'll populate that for you. Yeah. Service monitor is what it's called. Yeah. Actually, I should probably install some of these plugins so you can see. Yeah. Okay, yeah, any other questions? I saw you in the back, yeah. Yeah, so the question was about application dependencies if they're already up and running and you want to do an upgrade. How can, can you make them dependent on each other? So, and again, shameless plug, I did write about this in my blog, but there is methods there's no native way to say this application is dependent on this application in Argo CD. There's no native way. So one of the ways, but you can still do it, but one of the ways with Argo CD is to use sync phases and sync waves, right? So sync phases or sync hooks is like you can have like a pre-sync tasks. You can have the sync task, which is what we're watching now, and a post-sync task. So and they go in that order, right? Pre-sync, sync, post-sync. On top of that, you can do sync waves, meaning like within each individual hook or phase. So let's say like you can say, you can annotate your resource with saying, 1, 2, 3, 4, meaning like basically lower level, and you could actually do negative numbers, but lower means higher priority. So, and usually people do that like with like CRDs, right? Like I want to deploy a CRD first, then the CR, and then other things, or I want the storage to be available before blah blah blah, right? So that's kind of like the background, because then since you're using app of apps, right? You can have dependencies that way as well, because you can annotate your applications, right? So you have the parent app controlling, and it'll honor sync wave. So you can say, all right, database gets sync wave of 1, my backend gets a sync wave of 2, and my front end gets a sync wave of 3. So when I sync the parent app, it'll respect that. It'll basically it'll sync the first one, wait until it's fully synced, and then it'll move on to the next one. So that's kind of how you get it from using the app of apps. So that's only possible with app of apps. Yeah, so application set, and again, like from a high level, application sets are a templating engine. So application sets, a stable version, no. So in application sets, there is an alpha feature called progressive syncs that does what you're describing. There's a big capital C caveats, because there's like things that happen, like it turns off, it disables autosync for you. Like even if you have it enabled, it'll just disable it, because it relies on the application set controller's logic to do the syncs. It won't let you do like auto sync or anything like that, because it'll just rely on the upper ones. But you can use progressive syncs. I've used progressive syncs, and between us and I guess whoever's watching the recording, I know Intuit does use it in production internally. But it's still technically alpha. I've actually brought this up in the community meetings, saying like, no one's complaining about this feature. So either no one's using it, or they're using it and there's no problems. We should probably move it on to like beta, but it is still alpha. So that's really the. No, the progressive sync logic will sync them for you in that regular interval. So you would have to either wait the 3 minutes or use a webhook if something happens. Yeah. All right, any other questions? Yeah, question. Yeah.
So I read it's considered the successor of app of apps, right? But like, people are still using both today.
People are still using both, and just from like my experience, well, one, my opinion, and because of the experiences I've been using with our customers, is that you're going to be using both for different things, and you might be using them together. So I know, yeah.
Like two, and then when to use like both templating and help files, when to use help charts. Unless there are just different ways of doing things, then it all works.
Yeah. So I've seen folks use like app of app sets. So like they have like a parent app, kind of like the Bootstrap here, and that deploys application sets, right? And then I've seen the reverse, where I've seen the application sets, all it's doing is deploying other Argo CD apps. I've seen that, and Yeah, well, for the one I'm thinking about, is like there's a project called the GitOps Bridge, is that basically they want to be able to deploy application sets massively, because there's going to be an application set per like environment, for example, and they just needed a way to deploy it using one manifest, right? So they'll use an app of app sets.
Or is it more like an application set per repository?
Yeah, application set per repository, or like there's just certain boundaries, right? Because like, you know, there are places that are still kind of like siloed, or they want to build like these gating, you know, type of things where, yeah, like I have an application set, but I don't want like any, this is my dev application set and for all my dev clusters, and this is my, you know, tests, and this is my prod, just because they want that separation, and they may have different repos for different things. So, you know, there really is different use cases, right? There's like, for, yeah.
One application set for multiple environments?
And, yeah, and there is, and people do that. I mean, I would do that. I recommend that. It's still kind of hard to get people's mindset changed away from like, because there's like a Git workflows, right? So like all the separation of everything happens in Git, right? Your repositories, like no one has access to anything, right? Like you know, even to at some point, even the administrators really don't have access to a lot of the stuff, and they use Git as the interface. But that's like people who are really far into it. There's still some people that need, and there's some regulations, right? There's still some compliance things where like I need the separation of, yeah, there's like, yeah, certain things. There might be just like compliance, right? Like HIPAA compliance and, you know, governments, yeah. Yeah, there's,
That standpoint, even though
yeah.
you're exposed to it, you don't think of the structure based on that.
Correct, yeah, yeah. There's little nuances in, you know, from every industry, and, you know, people, you know, how you operate like something like in, you know, medical, right? Like HIPAA compliance are very, very strict. Banking, right? Like banking, like Swift, yeah, banking, Swift, like all like there's very different regulations to where even though you can do it like in one repo with one application set, there may be regulations that won't let them. That's another way. So it's a combination of all those things. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Yep.
I noticed that you installed the Acuity audit log. I was just curious what that looks like.
Oh, the Acuity audit log. Yeah, I did. I may have to like generate like some things, right? Right. I need to like generate some noise. Yeah. So this is a plugin specific to the Acuity platform. So when you look at your applications, like let's say Bootstrap, and then I click on the information. There's new tabs now. Audit logs, right? Like who did what, when. Based on the user that you're logged in. So if this is like connected to SSO.
Work with like, if I do, because I think there's like an exec feature. Does it actually say who logged in? I assume. Like if you have.
I actually don't know if the exec, I don't know if it captures that actually. And the sync history, like who did what, when, you know, kind of Celadora-ish metrics. And like if I was logged in like with SSO, instead of saying admin, it would have like my username, right? Yeah, so this is specific for this. Like if you have multiple, like because with Acuity you can have multiple Argo CD instances, and then it gives the which one? Do you? Application metrics, yeah.
So you don't make your font anymore, or is that going to replace it?
That I don't know. I don't know what application metrics is. Do you?
It's not a replacement. You still have to have Grafana and Prometheus stack installed, but if you were to install that, it's just an add-on, then you get the metrics natively in the UI.
Yeah, natively here, like in the UI. And then there's like the AI assistant, just because everyone.
It's definitely better to have access for sure. Just clicking in there.
So if I go here and I say, you know, again, you know, why is this missing? Who knows? I actually didn't prepare it. In the health field indicates application is missing from the target environment. It means blah, 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 blah. We actually do have a customer that's saying that this has reduced his calls from his developers. So for what it's worth, I mean, I don't know if about the AI train. I mean, this actually is pretty useful because, like, I mean, I know when I manage systems, I used to have devs that needed complete handholding and devs that I never heard from. So, so I understand the noisy developer thing, and this actually has helped that customer. So it is kind of cool to have some of these plugins from the Qt platform. So, cool. Any other info? Comments? Yeah, it's an AI plugin. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, more educational, or like more kind of like yeah, like, or like kind of just like, you know, instead of picking up the phone calling the IT guy, the developers that kind of like are using the AI assistant to help them debug some of this the triage things. So, and I think it uses. I know it doesn't use. It uses publicly available data from like the Kubernetes logs that people have posted, right? So it actually doesn't use customer data. So it doesn't like learn from your, right? It just kind of uses publicly available information. So kind of stuff that you should already know, but like there's people that don't know, right? So. What's that? Here? No. Yeah, no, I know. We have, yeah, well, a lot of us are flying to KubeCon, so I know I'm flying Saturday, so a lot of the team is there, so. Cool. Yeah, any other questions? Comments? Yeah. Yeah, so that's going to the application set. So the application set comes with a lot of generators, right? So when we talked about, and I may actually pull up the docs, Argo CD, CD dot read the docs. Okay, let me make this here. If I can, we were actually just talking about how we hate our docs, but operator manual. Application set. So application set, as I explained before, is basically a templating agent, right? Like it just basically takes input and then it turns it into an Argo CD application. So the templating engine is based on things called generators, meaning like how do I generate this template, right? And there's different generators. First, there's like a list generator, right? Which is basically basic key value pairs. Right, foo equals bar, blah, 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 right? And you can use that to build your Argo CD application. There's a cluster generator, meaning like based on cluster information, I want to build my application that way, right? For example, it says like, where is it? Yeah, the secret here. It's based on the cluster secret, right? So I can say based on if you are a cluster named foo, I want you to deploy this application. If you're a cluster named bar, deploy this application. You can, any labels that you add, right? You know, environment equals dev, right? Any cluster that's labeled that way is going to get that workload. So those are, there's a lot of those generators. Let me see if I can find, yeah. There's a Git generator, matrix generator, but there's also a pull request generator, right? Which is what you're asking about. So since we're doing GitOps, right, in order to see something in your environment, you have to merge your pull requests. A lot of people don't want to do that, right? A lot of people say, well, I want to see how it looks like before I merge this. And that's what the pull request generator is. It basically looks at your pull requests and saying anytime, there's a good, oh, there we go. Anytime someone has a pull request and labels it preview, I'm going to deploy that into an environment for you. With Argo CD, you would use an application set, and you'd use a pull request generator to say, okay, so anytime there's a pull request on this repo that is labeled a certain way, I'm going to deploy that workload. As soon as you merge it, that pull request goes away, and Argo CD will delete that environment for you. So that's kind of like how, there's a lot of nuances on how it works, but basically that's from a high level, that's how it works, and that's how people are kind of like previewing environments. Any other questions? Comments? So again, sorry about the platform. The platform, it was actually ended up being a platform issue. We just discovered it too late. We burned a lot of time trying to debug. Again, you can do this workshop if you have the link. The scenario is up and running, and then we have our production platform if you want to sign up, test it out, kick the tires a little bit. So, all right. Thank you.